Hey guys, welcome to the process. Welcome to the show. Alessandra Nicholson, how are you?
I am doing fabulous. Happy Wednesday, everyone. And
Happy.
I was gonna say, and I want you guys. I'm so excited for our guest tonight.
So excited, guys. Welcome to the process, a show grounded in the sterile processing arena of healthcare. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you. We have a special guest here, Marie Brewer.
Hi
Welcome, welcome,
guys.
welcome. So, guys, without further ado, we'll get into our intro and we'll see you guys on the other side. Four, three, two. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Personal protective equipment, PPE. That's what we're talking about tonight. And our guest, Marie Brewer, is here to elaborate. Alessandra.
Yes, so we took a look at a study that was recently published by Cori Ofstead and Associates that Marie Brewer worked on, participated in, gowned up in, and then the
I
lot.
know.
I mean, we talking about on the front line. She went all the way on the front line and actually produced some research that we can use in this field to further a conversation that we've all been having, which is the PPE that we have safe? Now, something that was wild through the pandemic was that we faced PPE shortages, but this is a conversation even predating that, right? We've been wearing PPE since the beginning, and there's always been conversation on the floor of, is it actually doing its job? I know I've personally had a wet glove before. I don't know how have you guys ever experienced that, right? And that's even with double, sometimes triple gloving. So I think that this research is groundbreaking, and I don't think that it's not making the splash yet that it needs to make. We're gonna drop a couple bombs on it here tonight on the process. So thank you, Marie, so much for taking the time to share your expertise with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So,
So go ahead.
so Marie,
Mhm.
Marie Brewer. So CHL, CRCST, CIS, CST, GTS, ABCDEFG. So
Alphabet
can you
soup. It's alphabet soup behind my name,
can
What does
you
it
absolutely.
all mean?
get into
Yeah.
what your certifications mean, please?
Yeah. So you'll see that I'm a certified surgical technologist. That's where I
Okay.
started. And then I have a real love of knowledge, and I just kind of keep on going when things interest me. I jump on board. So I have the 4 certifications from OSHA or HSPA now. So the certified registered sterile processing technician, as well as the instrument specialist, the endoscope reprocessor, and then also the certified hospital leader. The GTS is through SGNA. It's like a GI technical specialist. And as I was getting into that arena, I wanted to get, and as I started getting into AAMI and attending AAMI standards writing, I wanted to have a little bit more broad knowledge base, especially in the SGNA field when they come to the table, be able to speak their language as well, and show them that I value their education. And then the last one is a certified Lean Six Sigma Green Belt.
Oh.
So that's not like karate. It's that's what a lot of
it
people ask you.
is.
But it is.
Not,
It's
but
like
it is.
it's like a data ninja. So really
Nice.
that green belt I think is ideal for folks that are tasked with improving existing processes, if that makes sense. So like
Absolutely.
processes that aren't standardized, or maybe you don't have established metrics, or maybe we're just looking at reducing errors, or the actual cycle time of those processes. So I'm going to tell you, intro to statistics. Ooh, not good for me. Not good. But all that to say, I learned so much about how to pull data, all the different kinds of ways to show data and track it in a way that makes sense to me, the non-data person, right? And as I'm going to share it, with different audiences, I can use different formats really to be effective and to measure the problems that we were having on my team. So it was just another tool in the toolbox.
Right. And I want to highlight something you said of you not being a data person, because it's not necessarily you're not a data person, but you hadn't trained for this skill yet. So you recognizing that you didn't have this skill at a heightened level and that you wanted to have it, you go out and you pursue additional education for yourself to enrich your skill. And now you data ninja in like fruit.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I think, there is no university for sterile processing leadership or management. It's not out there.
True.
Maybe someday Sarah Cruz will make one. But
I was about to say there's supposed to be a 4-year degree that's supposed to mean that people know how to do that. But the thing of it is, and we see this in sterile processing leaders, is it doesn't matter if you have a bachelor's degree, an MSN, MSP. Nobody's training people how to manage other folks. So these are all skills that unless you go get these additional certificates on your own, you're going to struggle with this as a new leader. It's not impossible to gain these skills on your own, self-taught, but it's not standardized.
Yeah.
So true.
And I would definitely say with the addition of the green belt that people interact with me differently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People respect your knowledge more.
And I'm able to present it in a fashion that's it's just more reputable, I think, and it's not emotional based at all. It's just science.
There you go. There you go. It's like learning how to speak another language. So we're translating all the same information, saying the same thing, but tailoring it to a different audience. And you're able to now do that more effectively with those letters behind your name. Indeed. Then skill set. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not something you had to do, but you did. All right. So we know a little bit about you just because we are all internet cousins now in the world of sterile processing and social media. But for those that are just tuning in to the show for the first time or that have not met Marie Brewer, can you just give us a little walkthrough of your career and how you came to be at the position you're currently in?
Sure. I was graduated high school, started a degree in psychology. I needed to have surgery on my hands about 1.5 years in, and they let me be awake. And I was fascinated by everything that's happening in the operating room. They even took the curtain down, and I thought that was really cool. So I was fascinated by the surgical technologist that was in the room and facilitating my surgery. So I pretty much I pivoted and I changed direction, and I got my surgical technology degree and then that certification. I worked in the operating rooms and SPD it was awesome. 2 level 1 trauma centers, and I've worked in an ambulatory setting as well as an eye institute, which was actually one of my most favorite positions. And then when I got married, I moved to Iowa, and I transitioned straight into SPD and out of the operating room. I still maintain my certifications, but really, I think my passion was there, and I saw a need in a way I thought I could be useful. And after I moved into SPD leadership, I advanced into management, and my passion is really about adult education. And I do work with Amy, and also with HSPA. So really on refining standards and chapter leadership, as well as advocacy with certification advocacy at the national level.
And that's all the stuff that she does not on her day job. Right? Because you also manage a department actively.
Yeah, none of that's during my day job. That's on my own time. Yes.
Marie, you mentioned you were in SPD and the OR. How valuable was that experience, the cross training?
It built great empathy, and really changed when you work in SPD at the end of the day, when you're done with surgery, or say your SPD staff calls in sick and you end up helping cover that, you become more aware of how you send your trays to SPD, and I'll call it avoidable suffering, right? Like who's got all the spaghetti with their cords, and all of those type of scenarios, it's not good. Today I was untangling a knot of spaghetti in decontam, but I think really it helps build empathy, understanding, and better communication skills.
100%. I've always, and people might not appreciate this in sterile processing, but definitely from a management and a hiring side, like Dante said up there, that Six Sigma certifications have more value in SPD right now than a higher education degree. Okay,
yes,
it's the truth.
Dante.
It's just the facts. And another truth is that having a CRCST and a CST makes you more valuable in the operating space and makes you more likely to be hired in this space. It is really being coveted by perioperative directors, and even SPD managers now are seeing the value in having SPD techs that have also been cross-trained in the OR and vice versa.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And it makes you're right, it makes a major difference as to how the two teams actually interact with each other.
It's like learning two languages.
Yes.
And then
that's it. And being able to speak the language, and that's, even if we're having issues, I consider myself the bridge between the two areas, but
yes.
Having that baseline knowledge, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about AST standards, AORN, or AMI. They're all going to say the same thing about point of use care. They're all going to say the same thing. So we can do semantics, or we can, bat this back and forth. But in the end, I'll use whatever standards you want me to use, but they say the same thing.
Right, because the basic principle is still going to be the same thing. And I love what you said about, how you want this to go, because you can be a battering ram and try to draft that, information into somebody, but it's probably not going to go that well. Or you could be a bridge between them understanding how this is actually within their science as well. And hopefully that's enough. I know I've had experiences where that's not been enough, but hopefully that's been enough. If at least I'm talking to a nurse and I give you ARN, I hope you respect that. If you're a CST and I give you AST, I hope you respect that. And if you're a CRCST and I give you that AMI ST79, I hope you respect that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing your background with us. So I definitely want to get into the study. So can you tell us, how did you come to be involved with this?
Oh boy, I don't even know how Cori and I originally connected. I have a real sense of, I wonder about things a lot. I wonder why things are the way they are, or what could be done to improve it. I wonder if things are safe. I wonder if they're effective. And at one point in time, I did a research project with her, and it was published several places, but it was the cost of owning a bronchoscope and the total cost.
The true cost?
Cost. Oh, yes, because she and I really connected on that study, because what I ended up doing was helping build a broader base for the actual data points that we were researching, because, it isn't just the cost of the bronchoscope, the repairs, it's the PPE, it's the time to put it on, it's the education, it's all the troubleshooting. If you think about really how much education it takes to do multiple models,
it's the case time, waiting for things to be reprocessed. It's products that have been opened that didn't need to be used. Yeah, all these things. So
really kind of making that a broader data point was huge. And we really connected, her research team and I, in that project. Had a fun time bouncing a lot of things off each other. And we were the larger Midwestern urban site in that study. And you could really see, it was overwhelming when you saw the differences between folks, like even just putting on your PPE. Some people were like, I got my hand wash done and my PPE on in just, under 30 seconds. And there's others that, we're like getting dressed like the abominable snowman. We got, everything on that we could possibly get on. We got 2 on, and it just takes a long time to get done. Right. Yes. But those differences all matter.
Absolutely. And we laugh, we chuckle, right, about the tech that adds all these additional layers of unnecessary PPE, but apparently they were right the whole time, because according to the study, the one layer of PPE that's actually required by OSHA might not be as effective as we thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into that. Can you, for those of us that have not read the study, and we will definitely be sharing the link, and you should absolutely read it. It's not that long. Take your time. It's even got pictures in it. Take your time.
And they're not that flattering of me. So if you need a little laugh, my team got me all dressed up in that. So they had some fun too.
Man, I think it's great, especially for somebody that's looking at us from the outside, because we know what it is to walk into decontam and see the sinks and see the blue and all the, the headdress and everything. But for folks that don't know what we do, that is a different conversation about PPE than like a bedside procedure that some people might be a little more familiar with. So it's a valuable image. Maybe not GQ ready, but valuable image.
Very, very valuable. And guys, we're going to get into the questions. Just one simple. So guys, please like and subscribe, and also follow our YouTube channel, SteroMD at youtube.com. And please hit that notification bell so that you will be notified when we have any new content coming through. So guys, we'll go through a little commercial and we'll be right back. So guys, welcome back.
And SPD Nation, the Process Podcast is wherever you are. So if you're on LinkedIn, please head over to our group, the Process SPD Podcast. If you're on Facebook, find us at The Process. If you're on TikTok, you can find me at Lady Avon. And Dinar, where can they find you on TikTok?
Sterile MD on TikTok. And we're also on Anchor. So check out a few of our episodes on there. You could do your afternoon drive and still listen to us as well.
Absolutely. We want to meet you where you are with the information that you need. So without further ado, let's get into this. How did the study work? How did you test this out? What was the theory and how did this process go?
Well, that's exactly it. Cori is a joy to work with her research team. As someone who had never done a scientific study, she really walked me through the basics. Like, Marie, what is your theory? And I said, our theory was that the standards were not correct, that said 3 feet is all the distance we need to maintain safety, right? Aerosolization. And I think those of us that actually work at the sink and decon know full well that we see things move further than that. And, when you're just looking at it in this study, was really looking at it strictly from endoscope reprocessing, not like doing a total or where it could be much worse, frankly. Some folks trying to figure out that cleaned dirty flow, and is really 3 feet appropriate? Does there need to be a partition? That's kind of where we started with the theory, is that it goes further than 3 feet. And we ended up, as you probably saw from the pictures, we ended up affixing like a moisture sensitive cardstock everywhere. It's similar to that, the dry check that Healthmark has. Same idea, where it's like a cobalt blue, and then when moisture hits it, it's bright white. So we use that product to verify our endoscope channels are dry before we actually go to sterilization with them. But we fixed all those, and we performed some routine tasks, and it was really a fascinating process. I'm blessed enough to have one of my lead technicians went to school in New York, and he has, I'm not exactly sure what his degree is in, but he is a filmographer. He's a writer. He has all the equipment, and so he was able. At one point, he was. Oh man, he was up on top of the sink at one point in time. But we had laptops around, and Cori and her team were live on them, and they were directing and making notes. Justin was videoing and filming everything. So we were documenting in multiple fashions. And Absolutely. And then we were changing out PPE and that moisture sensitive paper between tasks. So we were sure we weren't, blurring the lines between some tasks. But that's sort of the gist of it. Cori and her team really led the steps. And then we did the tasks and then helped with the documentation. So.
Wow. And I'm just curious, what's something that you didn't know going into this that you were surprised to learn?
I thought it would be worse.
Wow.
I thought it would be worse than it was, but I think in my head, perhaps I was thinking about processing a total joint or some of those type of tasks.
And now, in saying that, is there room for future research? Like, do you think that there are other scenarios within that decontaminant PPE space that really need to be explored?
I think we need to explore what it. So this was in a very controlled environment that we did, right? So we did a full disinfection from like ceiling to floor, and really multiple disinfection cycles, because we knew we were going to we knew we were going to be dealing with some difficult situations, and we wanted, I believe, and I can't be 100% sure, but I know that there are different requirements if you're doing a controlled study versus one that would have known
like
bioburden.
live action.
No bioburden, like known, like, you're processing a bloody scope versus one that was not contaminated. So there's a whole nother set of factors there when you're actually doing it with instruments that have been used on a patient. So while the PPE was there, but my scope was clean, my sink was clean, my water was, so I think that's good.
So,
Right.
so
Like pretend risk, highlight real risk.
Yes. I think that that's where we need to go. And if I could be honest, too many times in this industry, PPE is the first line of defense and it should be the last. We don't have the right engineering controls in place. We, in general, I think that you look at someone who's compounding medications, right? There's partition there.
Yeah.
And,
I think about this heavily today because I actually spent time yesterday getting my teeth cleaned at a student dental clinic at a college. Ooh. And part of that process was conducting a tracer on their education program, their operations, their business management, and then, of course, their sterile processing protocols. And yeah, there's some things that it's mind blowing to know that no one has done anything about this yet, and that they could spray a gun into the mouth and there's splash going miles around. There's misting literally on my eye shield. Yeah. But at the same time, they're walking around in surgical masks in an effort to reduce the transmission of COVID. Like, it's just, at what point do we acknowledge that there's performative protection happening at this point versus real protection in these spaces? Well,
and we know that we have great technology in place. We have great chemistry in place. I mean, if you think about this job 15 years ago and just rubbing the daylights out of that, mosquito versus now where you have so much, you can literally, that enzyme in your water, if your water quality is good, is going to take care of most of that bioburden for you. And not so much elbow grease, but I think that we need to, part of my goals with this study are to try to partner with some of our sink manufacturers to adjust what that looks like. I would love to have basically, Steris, they have a pretty awesome sink setup, and so do other companies, where you can have a Sonic built in, or you can have a Whirlpool built in. I call it Whirlpool. It sounds pretty fancy.
I love the one from Pure
Jets,
Processing.
right? Yeah. But what would that be like if that process was more automated, where it's a rinse, a Whirlpool, a Sonic, and appropriate protection, in the form of a partition. And honestly, people.
That's Marie. That's enough for them. Don't give them nothing else for free. Now they're gonna have to pay you for the rest of that plan.
All right. Yeah. Even PPE. My vision of PPE is not what we have today.
No.
So Marie, I love the sink idea. What was the biggest challenge when performing your investigation? What was your biggest challenge in terms of getting your data back?
Let me think about that for a minute here. Honestly, Cori makes that part easy. I think Cori and I, when we get together, we just our mind goes and we start going further and further, and we're like, we need to keep this narrow. This is a pilot study. We need to keep this narrow, our scope where it is, and not bridge out so much, because it was easy to just start going, well, what about this? What about this? What about that? So I think trying to keep it narrow, keep our eyes on the prize, and really for the first time document it, both, in from a place of high integrity, and real scientific curiosity, like, what does this look like in our space, even though it was controlled?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's interesting. So you didn't deviate as much as you.
That was hard. Because it's like, what about this?
Woo, yes.
So you guys focused on the splashing, but did you guys? I read this, but did you guys take into consideration the levels of contamination based on the distance of the splash, or no?
No, we did not. And while we did measure some droplets, we did not, because it was a controlled study, we wouldn't have been able to quantify that anyway. And more of like a qualitative look. Was there splash? Yes, there was. Not quantify, like what it is, right?
Okay.
So honestly, that's interesting.
I will say honestly, that's enough for now, because we can guesstimate what's in that water, right? We know what comes down on those instruments. We know about the fecal matter on the EEA sizers. We know about the blood trapped in all the lumens in the instruments. Like, so it's, just imagine what chef's kiss is happening there.
Yeah.
And I have a question too, because how contaminated is enzymatic bioburden, or bioburden sitting in enzymatic? How contaminated is that? Is it diffused by the enzymatic, or
like, how much risk is there?
Yeah, how much risk is there if the bioburden is in the enzymatic?
I kind of want to tag team on.
I think that's a question for Wava Truscott, probably,
right?
the queen of microbiology and SBD.
Let's get it in here.
She's fantastic. I really wouldn't know how to start to answer that question per se, but we know enzymes do,
Yeah, does the enzymatic neutralize it?
We know they mutate.
Like Pac-Man. Yeah, I'm not sure on the science behind that one.
Right.
Denard.
Man, yeah. We'll love to get the connection and see if we can get her in here to answer some questions. Because I definitely wanted to piggyback on it, because something I've been told as a manager several times from employee health and infection control.
I know where you're going.
Right?
I know where you're going. Take a splash to the eye.
Come on, right? Splash to the eye, water in the glove, water invasion in the glove. Employee has a cut. Employee comes running to the office and wants to know, do I have HIV now? And I'm going, well, I don't know. We assume all cases are contaminated. I don't know what was in that bloody water. But when they go to the ER and they go get tested, oftentimes they're told that it's more than likely not a big risk to them, because they had their hands inside of that water with the enzymatic in it. Now, I always kind of just say, that's their level of expertise. Who am I to question? However,
I would push back on that. Normally I end up, I advocate for them to get the baseline drawn, and if we clean our sinks in between each case for the most part. So,
pause. Did y'all catch that, SPD Nation? We clean our sinks in between each case, in case you haven't heard.
Yeah, and if you look at the beginning of this study, it talks about, like, she used some glow germ to talk about sinks. I really talked to Cori. One of the studies that I would like to do is, let's talk about our sinks and our drains. And I want to talk about, but I digress.
Yes.
Squirrel. Right. But I think that's an interesting concept, is how clean are our sinks, because even, since we clean our sinks in between at the same time, if we can isolate the patient, that's great, but I cannot really, if you got poked by a bloody instrument, yes, you can draw that source if you know who it is, and you have a system that'll let you do that. However, a lot of times I just assume ick. I have the ick factor, and I pretty much just I advocate for the staff to get their baseline drawn and have maintenance draws, just to make sure that they're good to go. Because it's not just them, right? It's their loved ones. It's people they care about, they live with,
100%. And I'm so glad that you added that, because as a manager, we do have to keep in mind, We are protecting these people's livelihoods, their bodies, their ability to function. And that is not just their ability to produce kits for us, but that's their ability to take care of their families, their parents, their children, their partners. So it is important for us to take the time to truly advocate on behalf of them, even when they don't think that they need it. I cannot tell you how many times people have said they didn't want to fill out the employee injury report. And I'm telling them, hey, you need to fill that out, right? Like, do it, because you never know what can happen down the road. And then you need this documentation in order for you to access the benefits that you rightfully have in order to take care of yourself. So you gotta do that for them.
Gotta do the documentation. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
So Marie, let me ask you, just to elaborate, why do you clean after each case?
I'm just grinning at Sarah. I was quoting her. I digress. That is.
We went on a little tangent. Thanks for bringing us back, Denard.
Sorry. Why do we clean sinks in between? Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, let's just talk about a total joint procedure or belly case, right? You're going to have those residual fats that kind of come to the surface and line the sides, right? So every single time you refill that sink, if you're not taking care of doing your baseline, it's kind of like you're always cooking in a dirty pan, right?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, it's not a good scenario. So and we're more neurotic, I think, when it comes to endoscope reprocessing. You need to be even more careful at that point.
Exactly. I agree.
It's like this whole thing where sterile processing produces sterile kits for the operating room behind a red line, but some of them don't actually have EVS staffing and perform terminal cleaning. How are you going to make sterile food in an unsterile? Right? Okay, again, I digress. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you and Cori Ofstead have gotten connected, are clearly on the same wavelength about all the places that we need to go. You guys were able to focus yourselves down to this central and very key, important principal point, which is it safe or is it not? Let's just start there. Mm-hmm. And you found that for what is currently in black and white, which is the 3 feet separation. And I do want to be clear, that's the 3 feet separation between cleaning and between a decontamination space and a clean space. So you could technically store clean things 3 feet away is what they're trying to say.
Or let's make it a little more. A lot of us might have a 2 to 3 bay sink, and on the end of it, we have like a chuck pad or something where we put our hand wash stuff there. Now, if I'm over here, I'm doing this work, and that's only 3 feet away, I'm recontaminating that.
Yes.
So, like, just from a baseline procedure perspective, I think that's what hits home for me.
That is
now let's get the sprayers out and really,
and really amp it up and mix it up.
Yes.
And really have a party, right?
I mean, and it's such it's really disheartening to think about it, especially when you lay it out so plainly about the 3 sink separation, because here you are as a tech, reading at home, taking your test, doing your thing. Some of us have paid nearly $20,000. Some of us are going into debt to get these certifications to come in to do these jobs. Yeah. And I'm thinking I'm doing the best of the best by cleaning over here and going down the 3 sinks and placing my clean things at the end. But in actuality, there might have been some risk there.
Well, and let me do my Amy plug. This is the big one. Amy is always looking for, frontline healthcare folks that want to join and give feedback on these standards. And honestly, it's kind of hard to move the needle sometimes when, say, I'm arguing with SG&A and gastroenterologists, and I'm arguing with this, that, or this. And that's kind of where Cori and I came together is, well, let's put some science together so that we have some weight.
There you go. We have some weight and called in the gang, right? Called in everybody to bring in their part of what they've been studying and doing in an effort towards this. And now we're seeing this massive collaboration of each person bringing in their puzzle piece in order for us to not only save SPDs, but to raise it up to the science that it is. We're not trying to prove anything that's not true, right? We just want to get a level playing field of what is actually going on here so that we can innovate beyond.
We just started with a theory, and Cori really wasn't sure if it was going to go beyond there. And we stopped at 5 to 6 feet. We stopped there. We could, that's where we had to stay on eyes on the prize. Well, how far back should we go? Now stop a minute. That's not what we were doing here. Right. That's not the original. gold study. So
Absolutely.
So Marie, in your study, I don't think you mentioned it in your article. What was the weakest part of PPE that we normally use at this moment?
Well,
Like,
I think
what's the weak link?
Face shield, gown, gloves. What just absolutely
Shoe
failed you
covers.
in your time of need?
no. Well, I mean, we were in impervious shoe covers, so that part was fine. But we are in boots, right? So if you were to have shoe covers that were to the ankle, you'd be toast. If they were just covering the feet, or they weren't fully impervious, then you definitely could see that was a problem.
So you mean those techs that create the boots and tape and put the steam tape all around to make sure that they're creating? They're
That's
not
nice.
crazy. They're not crazy.
No.
They need that.
Well, I don't know. I just use impervious ortho boots, and they cover me just fine.
Right.
So, what I would say is, I think we as human beings are not all made the same.
Yes.
And our PPE comes in small, medium, large, extra large, and it
Stops at
is
3X if you're lucky.
And it's unisex.
Yes.
And so I think part of the problem with the design is that the gloves don't necessarily go high enough. Right. If you're to look at some of the gloves that go like all the way up to here, they don't stay up my arms. They slide right down.
Slide down every time.
Yeah.
Man,
so
I wanted to love those extended cuff gloves from Halley so bad.
They look like horses.
Oh man, they are purple and beautiful and everything. You pull it up and then you get to scrubbing, and then 5 minutes later it's falling off.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, if we were to talk about the weakness of PPE, for me, I have some small forearms, and so my gloves slide down. And then if I don't have the right administrative controls in place when I'm working at the sink, meaning like my sink level, and my sink at the right height for me, then when I go to put my arms in, I'm going to have fluid infiltration over the top. But I have others who the gloves fit them really well. They have a little more meatier forearms, and for them, perhaps it's the gown that isn't quite working for them. It isn't tall enough, long enough, or and I think in general, this whole we're not in the right space to protect our face when we're working.
Not even a little bit.
And you could see in this study how much there was ick.
I did see that.
Even on like my head. So that's another reason.
I'm telling you, that was me in that dental
like,
chair. Just a mist across my face.
Throw that bonnet away when you walk out of decon. For me, I wash my face and neck, and like I'm pretty much rub-a-dub-dub scrubbing at the hand wash sink before I walk out.
Yeah. And also, what are the restrictions of hand wash sinks now? Some of them are like 8-inch sinks. You can't really get your full arm. Like, the OR for the surgeons. For the surgeons, there's a
they have the full
thing they could get. But when you get
arm.
Scrub sinks, yeah.
Right. When you get to sterile processing, it's this little itty bitty sink you have to try and
right. Yes.
But again, that turns into who your SPD leader is and getting the right sink in place for you, right? So
true.
Or even just lifting the faucet so you can get a good
exactly.
Yes. I mean, and it also highlights.
I soap up to the middle of my bicep, and then.
Absolutely. It also highlights what we talked about in the beginning of having those cross-functional teams that are actually cross-trained, that are not just simply sitting down at the table with their area of expertise, but they have actually mastered someone else's. Yeah. Because if you have that group rounding, they would be the group to walk through and say, why do the scrub techs and the nurses scrub from the elbow down when they go into the sterile room, but the SPD techs scrub from the wrist down when they go into the dirty room? Right? Like, it's things like this that might occur, and then you come up with these solutions.
Yeah, and don't forget, like, all these things, you take it home.
Yes.
And what is the largest organ in our body? Our skin.
Come on. Sure. And I'm... Come on. Yes. It's so important.
I was waiting to see when I could get the big explosion.
Look, we still got 20 minutes to go, Marie. Let's see how it goes. Ooh, we should have a bomb award.
Yeah, the biggest bomb for okay.
All
right, that's a good idea.
We're 1-1. All right. So something that you mentioned that I don't want to lose sight of was the ergonomic controls. So in decontam, the fact that there are other things that we can do as well to increase the safety of our staff in the
And that's
decon
where I'm
space.
at right now. That's
Right?
where I'm at right
So
now. with my team.
can you talk to us about that? What does that look like for a leader, for a tech, to take a look at ergonomic control? Why don't you first break down for folks listening if they don't know what ergonomic controls are?
Well, I'm going to back up. So I kind of fall into administrative controls, and then the ergonomics are right in there in the middle of it. And so really, when you have those things like engineering controls, that's more of like the design of the equipment you're using in the room you're in. And administrative controls are the type of things that you have in place to make it easy to do the right thing, right? To standardize some of the safety processes and whatnot. And ergonomics for me, I started out with having OT and PT from my hospital come in and take a look at the work we're doing. And, my people that are 6'2", and my people that are 5 feet with the hair.
Right.
So with the hair, right?
With the hair in a bun and 2 bonnets.
Yes, right. Exactly. Poof. And so really looking at that difference in our human bodies and trying to do the work in a sink, right? And I know all of you probably seen, little short kicks at the sink that are like in there. And then you have the tall people that look like they're just totally bent over and need to go see a chiropractor at the end of every shift. So some of those ergonomic controls for me are bringing the sink up to a workable height, so that we're keeping our forearms level or parallel to the workstation itself. And that is helpful, but it also brings the water closer to our face, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So some of those really, for me, working with my fantastic lead techs, really isolating some of the issues that generate splash. Like, for example, how many of us have sprayed a basin and whoop, right in the ew, right? Just ew. And even better when it just rolls down the inside of the
hey, that's too graphic.
We reach, some administrative controls would be like, when we're doing this task, we're going to be in 5 gallons of water or 10 gallons, and there's going to be no 15-gallon, scenario going on here. Because how many of us have had fluid infiltration and then we lift our arm and it goes all the way down? And that happened to me without even meaning for it to happen. And Cori got to see the whole thing. My team
at least it's on tape.
Died laughing, right? But it's the reality. Like, when you train someone, you're like, ooh, be sure you bring an extra pair of undies and socks with you because you may need that someday. And they look at you like you're crazy until
no lie.
They're in decon, right?
No lie.
Right? Oh my God.
So yeah, you heard it here first. You should definitely have a change of all things.
From the skin out, you need to have it all here with you. And you probably need a little...
And as a manager, I'm going to need you to have 2 sets of that and a set of clothes for a meeting that you didn't know you were going to have. Okay.
And I may have like the little Target size samples of shampoo and body wash too, because you just don't know.
Because we don't get ready, we stay ready here at the process.
Yes, that's right.
We do.
You know that. So.
Oh no, Marie, I got 2. Where you at? You got 15 minutes to go.
Right.
Okay. So you completed this study. You were literally a guinea pig and researcher all in one. Can you talk to us about where you want this to go moving forward? Like, this is not the end of this conversation, right?
No. Well, there's a few fronts. I sit on the ISHM, sorry, I'm still learning HSPA.
HSPA.
Get my act together. I'm newer to the certification advocacy committee. And so there's 5 of us that represent the United States and more. But really, we're taking that study to government and using it for certification advocacy.
Come on.
So, where we want to get certification moving forward in several states. And we think that that's impactful because it demonstrates the risk. Yes. And then, there is some work being done for hazard pay for certain individuals, EMTs, frontline ED staff. Well, we're going for it with SPD techs too, and we're using this study to do it.
There we
go. We're cleaning devices that were used on COVID patients. So,
there you go.
don't take that to the bank that we're all going to have this money coming in our accounts, because knowing how things work, they'll probably say,
but we're one step closer than we were.
Yes.
We are one step closer than we were before you guys completed this study, though.
Yeah. So that's the first piece is really on a national scale, making sure that we nail that down. And like I said, I'm really new to that committee. I see Dawn is on here. Hey, Dawn. Dawn's been on it since the beginning. And I think, whatever we can do with science to advocate for the industry. Absolutely. And the people that fuel the industry, that's important. Absolutely. So that's my first chunk. I think PPE redesign is non-negotiable. Because some people could say, hey, we could just throw some N95s on. Well, here's the problem.
The study that says that's not enough.
Well, but is it tolerable for long periods of time? And
Can you even work like that? Yeah.
And Cori's tests have shown that they wick droplets through the layers within 15 minutes when supposedly they're fluid resistant. So,
and I had to pause you there because this is highlighting another reason why just this research alone is so impactful. That knowledge is critical and critically obstinate to everything that we've been doing for the last 3 years under COVID, right? So we've had these nurses and frontline staff wearing N95s for their entire shift, 12 hours, 15, 16 hours. And within 15 minutes of wearing this mask, it's already wicking moisture to what?
Depending, and I don't know the exact study that is from, and I don't know what, even if you look at some of the surgical masks, right? Like they're supposed to be great for taking a splash, right? Yeah. And then you change immediately. But did they use water? Did they use blood? We're using water at the sink. And a lot of the things, the chemistry we use in the water, what makes the droplets more bouncy, makes more slippery. So does that impact? I don't know, but I have a lot of questions. I wonder.
Yes, because definitely we use for example, for Mako knee procedure, you see the gowns and
they're
the
my
face,
favorite.
You see the full gown and donning of the space suit. I would say like a space suit, and then you go down to sterile processing, cleaning up that mess. And you have a little finicky gown, a little mask.
Isolation gown, surgical mask.
Right. Not even rated at the right rate for what you're doing. So a lot of departments have those little thin plastic gowns for patient rooms.
The film gowns or whatever they are. Yeah.
Yes. And the
ones that are like a garbage bag. That's
just
like
those garbage bags. Yeah.
Wet in them. So
just if you have them in your decon now, we want you to go ahead and get that Emmy book. Find out the standard you're supposed to have.
Yes. I believe it's 3 or 4 rating.
3 or above. Rated 3 or above.
Yeah. Please.
Because like Marie said, this is not even just individual safety. This is community health we're talking about at this point. You're going to take whatever you have on you and you're going to walk around like a giant germ. So we don't want you taking anything out of these decontaminants home to your families, into the cafeteria with other people. You're like, come on. And my last little pet peeve on that is another reason why it is unacceptable for us to be outside in our PPE. Should be non-negotiable.
But there are things we can do, right? With the administrative controls.
Solutions. Let's talk about solutions.
What are some things we can do today? Maybe it's about dropping your water level when you're performing certain tasks.
Maybe instead of 10 gallons, make a 5-gallon sink.
Well, depending on the task.
But my dispenser is rated for 10 gallons. So how do I do that?
Make your manager get you one that's flexible. It can go 5 or 10 gallons or 15.
Okay.
Upgrade.
And managers and administrators, be ready to receive that change needs to happen, right? Don't take it as an affront to yourself because you went out of your way to get this dosing so that all I had to do was press the button, right? And that's great. But we have now some more knowledge that should dictate some further action.
Right, and sometimes these pumps can be modified. It
True.
depends on
Simple
who they
as
are.
knowing how to, to get to the code
But,
and change.
for me, I started at like the riskiest behavior that generated the most splash, which was like spraying things down, right? So instead of me spraying and hosing a basin down, maybe I'm going to grab one of my sponges, wipe it down, and then rinse it, like by dipping it in a sink and setting it aside. There's a lot of, like, when my sink fills, I walk away and then I let the mist settle, because it doesn't give me the same sensation I get at home with the Dawn dish bubbles.
Right.
This is
This ain't that.
Yes. And there's one more thing you could do also. Please head out to that YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and also hit that notification bell so that you will be notified every time we have new content and the new shows coming out. So back to Marie.
Well, and I mean, honestly, as a result of this study, we've started with, and this may sound kind of odd, but we've started fit testing our folks when they come in the door for PPE, right? Like, so your first day, one of the first things we do is we want to check out, do these gloves work for you? Do they actually keep the water out? Does the gown work for you? All those type of scenarios. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to find what they need to at least be at the right level, right? Because, some guys, they have really big hands, and you need a bigger glove. So, and likewise, some of our girls, it's just hard when we're not all built the same. Some of us have really, petite hands, or long fingers, short fingers. I don't know if you've seen the girls with the tiny little hands and they got all this extra glove at the end.
You can't even really feel what you're trying to do. I mean, and make no bones, this is OSHA required PPE. So as administrators, as hospitals, as organizations, we are required to fit our employees. And it's not acceptable for you to just have a range of sizes up there and think that now everybody is covered. I mean, it's definitely also something that highlights the need for size inclusivity. I've had, vendor partners come through that just cannot fit at all into the bunny suits that are universal and one size. Right? Like, come on. It's just not safe. And the point of it is for it to be safe.
Yeah.
So it also reminds me of a vendor conversation we saw on LinkedIn around the ScrubX machines, or not the ScrubX machines, but the RepTrax machines, and whether or not those scrubs are even sufficient, right? They tear apart, they're kind of disintegrating on me, but you're claiming that you're solving a problem by requiring me to get them here because we want everybody to have on appropriate sterile PPE, but is it actually closing the gap? Or are we checking the box to say we closed the gap? Wow.
Interesting concept.
Right? It's so many questions. But I think another thing I want to highlight is just that SPD is a science, but it's being done at, like you said, at a global level, at a federal level, at a state level, at a city level, at a facility level, at a department level. So there's so much room for there to be nuance. And it's important for us to understand and maintain this research mindset, that we are willing to go to the books, that we are willing to study, that we are willing to check our data, that we're willing to test the theories that we believe before we make a process.
So and we're really blessed to have people like Cori Ofstead and her team, like Wave Truscott, the people that are actually able to quantify, things at the microbial level, and then just epidemiology. This is a good time to be an epidemiologist, right? With the pandemic going, but to have those individuals in our corner, in our industry, that are so passionate and well-spoken.
Absolutely, 100%.
So Marie, if you had one more study left in you to do for the rest of your life, what would it be?
She has so many. If you could only do one more.
You could only do one more.
If you were trapped on an island.
Yes.
This was not on the list of questions. Boy, that's a hard one for me to narrow it down.
Okay, 2.
She said no. When I'm working with 1 million, 2 is still a major deduction.
I would like to talk about endoscope cleaning verification in a quantitative fashion. Like, we do hemoglobin, protein, and carbohydrates, or we do ATP. Like, I would like to know how much So if I'm right now, my bronchoscopes are now cleared to be put through low temperature sterilization, and those huge pulmonary scopes, as Cori has proven, are the most difficult scope to clean. And I have a lot of anxiety about moving that out of the AER and into sterilization, because everybody says, oh, this is more effective. But I worry when we remove all that flushing and we remove all that, all those steps, what happens then? How do we know that our process at the manual cleaning sink, which we know is already flawed, how do I know, right? And so I'd be curious to know more about what that looks like, and what exactly is in that endoscope, and not restrict it just to hemoglobin or carbohydrates. I want to know about water quality and what's going on in there. And I see Dante just threw something up there about endotoxins in the flexible endoscopes. I mean, that's right on the money.
Right. And it shouldn't be a question. We should know, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to do that. We had Leslie Kronstadt on the show several times.
She's
talking
wonderful.
She's phenomenal. Technical skill out of this world.
Yeah.
So
and a great writer, fantastic author.
Come on, talk about multi-talented. SPD, we don't get enough accolades for all the multi-talented people that are in this space. But one of the things that she talked to us about was legislation, reimbursements, how Medicaid works with all of this. And we learned through her about surveillance periods. And I still am shocked to know that we don't really have a surveillance period for scope procedures. And I just wonder if that was actually happening. Would some of these outbreaks be non-mysteries to us, because we'd actually be testing these patients and finding out that maybe we're not cleaning effectively because infections around this may or may not be high, but we don't know because we're not asking.
Well, and it's just interesting, some of the science that's coming out right now. There's an article I read not too long ago, last week, on total joint infections that are happening 1 to 2 years out. And there was a link in, I forget if it was Korea or South Korea, where they actually were finding out that it was, I think it was bacteremia, something. But basically it was colonoscopy and fecal matter after having a polyp removed or a biopsy punched and migrating through the bloodstream into the joint and infecting the joint 1 to 2 years post-op.
And so because post-op,
even looking at
normal surveillance period of 90 days?
Yeah, that's the hard part is
Leslie, if you're in the comments, what's the surveillance period for that procedure if you're down there? Wait, boom. It's wild. It's wild. We could go 1,000 places. I'm not gonna.
I know. See, this is the problem. But it's like
this is what happened when you and Cori got together, huh? It was like
keep it cool, Marie. Keep it cool. Just eyes on the prize.
Focus. Oh my God. I mean, when you're tasked with, or excuse me, because we've not been tasked, when you pick up the mantle of actually changing an industry, your focus is going to be split. But as we get ready to wrap up the show, and I do want to thank you for spending this hour with us and sharing your expertise with the SPD Nation.
Thank you.
Can you talk to us about your inspiration? Somebody, a hero, or someone that just truly keeps the fire within Marie Brewer lit?
Oh, it's my people. It's my team.
There you go.
They are the ones that do it for me every day. My personality with the Myers-Briggs is an advocate, and what fills my bucket is seeing my people succeed, and not just succeed, but succeed wildly, to empower them to do what they do, to question things, to wonder, to experiment. And that there are people that help feed me, but like Wave on a lot of her research, and Cori, and really intellectually stimulating, but my people, they have my heart, and that's why I do it, is them.
100%.
3.
Okay. And I'm gonna just say this: that bomb was worth 5 bombs, so she wins.
Yep. People first. People over process.
People first.
Yeah, and when we try to make when we try to systemize, and I'm a fan of standardized work process, but when we try to systemize everything, we lose that human component, and that's that ability to reason and ration and that high reliability organization, right? Where we are not going to simplify and just follow the procedure when something odd comes through. We have to be able to deduce and reason what's acceptable.
Right. And
So
stay
true.
focused on the agreed upon objective, which is no harm. No harm for the patient.
Not just
for the for the employee, for the organization, no harm. That's the goal.
Well, I love you guys. I'm so glad you guys put this show together and you're doing the work you do. It's valuable and it inspires me.
And
Thank
we
you.
really appreciate having you on. Some great conversations, and we will see you in the future. We'll have some more great conversations, and share some good ideas on what we want to plan for the future. Alessandra, take us out.
Thank you guys for tuning in across all platforms. We see you on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube right now. Thank you for taking the time. And yes, Denard and I are here to provide this platform for all of the folks that are doing this work in the field. We want to highlight you, and we want you guys to be able to come here and drink from this well and go back and get the work done. That's another one.
Peace.
Peace.